All right, find Proverbs in your Bible. And we're going to be chapter 14, Proverbs 14. I know you know this verse. 34. Let us stand in honor of this great verse. Chapter 14 in Proverbs, verse 34. Righteousness exalteth the nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. That's Proverbs 14, verse 34. You may be seated. I have this idea that our country has lost its national conscience. People don't know the difference between good and bad. They don't know the difference between sin and righteousness. That's why it's like that verse to help us out. And it's we're facing a morality crisis as a result of that, and it's every place, and it's masked somehow. People don't see it unless you really study it, and things are going on, and things are being said that are destroying us, and people whom we respected are being I don't know what you call this. They're being abused in the press, and
slander,
and it's and the news programs, and it's people are saying bad things about each other all the time, and about bad things about what we're doing in our country even, and so I think that we don't know what's good and what's bad. We don't know what's righteousness and what is sin. And that's probably the fault of the churches, because we have Proverbs, and we know differently. But our young people are coming up. They're not going to Sunday school. They're not going to church, and they don't know the difference. What they're told, and I commented to you a few weeks ago on that article that was in the newspaper where they had been teaching children as early as 5 years old the various ways to commit sexual sin. And I mean, they must have no conscience left. And I think that's what's happening. You know, when you violate your conscience, after a while you don't have one. I don't know if you've ever known anybody like that. Somebody who lies a lot, well, they've violated their conscience so much they don't even know they're doing it. And they, if you tell them they're lying, they don't know what you're talking about.
Their lie becomes their truth.
Yeah. So the conscience is a thing, and actually that's really the unforgivable sin. You have no more conscience. You can't repent of your sins because you don't know you're even sinning. That's why it's the unforgivable sin. Well, anyway, so let's take that word, righteousness. What do we think that means when we read that? Righteousness exalteth the nation. What do you think that word means? Anybody?
Godliness.
Godliness. All right, that's a good word for it. Another one. What kind of godliness?
Christ-like.
Christ-likeness. Okay, that's very good. Okay, how about going to church? Is that righteousness? Yeah, okay.
Pray.
Pray, okay. Hey, we've had great prayer answers internationally. We prayed our best prayers with our hearts even for North Korea, and look at the total turnaround. And it's the end of the Korean War, finally, after all these years, whatever it's been, 50 years or something like that. And I know other people may have been praying also. I'm sure there are some other people, but we had all the seminary students there too. And so they're excited also because that thing's turning around, okay? Sacrifice, okay? Okay, sacrifice of giving, time, Okay, how about, is there sometimes you have to sacrifice something to go to church?
Yes.
How about Sunday school?
Yes.
Okay, I'm leading you.
Yes.
But I want us to think about, what is righteousness? Do people know what righteousness is? And you said it right. It's right with God. That's really the literal meaning. You're right with God. And sometimes people say, well, we want to get this guy right with God. You know?
Right.
Well, that means you want to get him behaving himself. And I know sometimes they do mention God on the news broadcast, but I don't think they know who he is. They're using that as a figure of speech. And so I don't know if people know about righteousness. They're putting God first in your life. How's that? Okay? That's what tithing teaches us, put God first in our lives. And that's righteousness. We're right with God. And when we get right with God, then God can do things. He relies on us to be right with him in order to make things happen. And he has a plan for the earth. It's not just drifting out here in the space. He has a plan for it.
Amen.
That is going to set up the kingdom of heaven on earth, as you know. And so we need to be right with him so that he can do that.
Amen.
I think he's getting ready to do something with that. And I was studying the millennium because I was speaking to the internet groups on that subject recently, and it seems that the scripture teaches that there's a hardening of Israel while God waits for the last person to become a part of the bride of Christ by believing in Jesus for everlasting life. Wow, that's pretty significant. The last one could happen today.
Right.
And
Yes.
that should be part of our conversation and our message, for that matter, the message of life. Hey, there is a last person that's going to come into that particular group of believers in Jesus for everlasting life that we call the church. The church is a specific number of people in God's mind, and that's which is the fullness of the Gentiles has come in. That means there's an end to it. And Jesus said the same thing. My meat is to do the will of God and finish his work. So this thing has got a time limit on it. And so there's a limit to how long it's open to people. Righteousness is getting right with God as far as believing in Jesus for everlasting life is concerned. You don't get into the kingdom if you don't believe in Jesus for everlasting life. Not everybody knows that. Probably 90% of the people that live in Palm Beach County don't know that.
Right.
And I'm happy that we're getting out on all these things right here. I know it looks kind of strange to have a lot of stuff there, but we're pumping out the message of life all around the globe, literally, especially Periscope. I didn't know what that thing would do, but it shows you the names of the people who are listening, watching, and I can't pronounce it. They must be in Afghanistan and other places way out. And some of them are Oriental writing, like Chinese and Japanese, and so I don't even know what I do with that. But anyway, I say hi, thanks for watching, but we're reaching a lot of people around the globe. And they're not going to come to church and join our Sunday school because they live a long ways away. But I give them, every one of them, every time I speak on there, I give them an invitation to believe in Jesus for everlasting life. Well, then the Holy Spirit indwells them and helps them to learn the difference between righteousness and sin. And now they can violate their conscience, and then they don't know the difference. And I'm afraid, honestly, we have some people who are perhaps born-again Christians who have lost their conscience because they've not been obeying the Lord. And so righteousness, that's being right with God, and that means doing his will and finishing his work and participating in the calling out of the bride of Christ for the great wedding in the sky. And okay, now how about sin? What do we mean by that? Sin is reproach to any people. What do you think that means?
And it's acting on our own will.
Acting in our own will.
Yes.
Okay, instead of the will of God.
Right.
Okay, that's good. All right. I may listen to this after today and write down some of these things. So help me make a list here.
Doing what we know is wrong.
Okay, and how do we know that?
We're born with a conscience.
Our conscience. Okay, we're born with a conscience. Very good. And does the Bible help us?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. Ten Commandments. Does that tell us about sin? It does. Yes, that's right. And do you think very many people would know those Ten Commandments? Probably not. No. A lot of times you learn them in Sunday school, but most people don't go to Sunday school. Sunday school is falling apart everywhere, all across the country. And in fact, that big dinner that we've been invited to go to is somebody from the Sunday school board trying to get pastors interested in having a Sunday school in their church and buying some of their literature because they aren't selling much literature anymore. And so they've invited all the pastors, all the Baptist pastors, for a free dinner while they give us a big pep talk. And so we're going to go anyway, even though we do have a Sunday school. But our Sunday school is languishing. We have to do something. I know there's a million things for kids to do other than come to Sunday school. And they do that. I mean, it's a great day like this. They want to go to the beach. They don't want to go to Sunday school. And they have a lot of other things that they can do on a day like today. And okay, so what else? That's good. Your responses are very good so far.
What's the new question?
How do we know what sin is?
Oh,
We know we got the Ten Commandments, we got the Bible, we got our conscience. What else?
Taking the name of God in vain.
Taking the name of God in vain. Okay. All right.
prayer. Prayer shows us.
Prayer shows us we can learn about sin in prayer. Sure. Ask God. Am I guilty of some sin I'm not aware of? He'll be glad to tell you. Let you know about that. That's a good prayer, by the way. And okay. And how about in church? How about in church? Do we have a responsibility to let people know what sin is?
Yes.
Okay, that's right, we do. And sometimes we're a little shy about that because, if you mention some kind of a sin and somebody out there in the congregation is guilty of it, and then they leave a little early or something, and you say, oh, I should have kept my mouth closed. And,
Practice on your family.
yeah. Well, I tell you, it is a little scary to talk about sin because they don't want to hear about that if they've been involved in it, whatever it is. I mean, how about sex? Do we know the difference between?
Good sex and bad sex.
Okay, good,
Right.
good. There's a new term came out in the newspaper yesterday. No, it was in the news magazine. Pansexual. This lady claims that she's pansexual, which is, I understand, it means she commits all the different kinds of sins you can think of. And there's so many now that they've stopped adding letters to that, what do you call that thing with the,
Wow.
F, I can't even pronounce those things, but you know what I'm talking about. And so pansexual. If somebody says they're pansexual, watch out. And they're being taught that that's okay in the schools. And that's what they're coming up with. Okay. Now what happens when we lose track of the difference between righteousness and sin?
Lose our conscience.
Okay, we lose our
We
conscience.
separate ourselves from God.
Okay, and what can happen to our nation?
Falls apart.
That's right.
Wars.
That's right.
Death.
That's right.
God's removal of his hand and his people.
That takes away his protection. That's correct. And his spirit is grieved. And
and puts a great big responsibility on the Christian churches, the true churches, to call attention to that. And in the last presidential election, there was no evidence of righteousness toward God in that whole thing. That thing was just atrocious. And I don't think we've ever had a national election like that before. And we watch news programs once in a while, and lots of times my comment is, whatever happened to statesmanship? They're not doing that. They're fighting with like kids, like bad kids. Okay, so we can bring God's curse upon our nation if we allow sin to continue without fighting it. We have an obligation to call to people's attention that these sins are going on because they don't have a conscience about it. Everybody else is doing it. It must be okay. They wouldn't say that, but that's what they think. And so they go on and do it too. Pretty soon everybody's sinning, and the Holy Spirit is quenched, and the protection goes away. The nation was founded by Christians, and we used to have some pretty good churches and some pretty good preachers. And now the number of churches is declining instead of increasing. And the number of people who attend regularly and bring their tithes and offerings and pray and read their Bibles and go to Sunday school and participate in the Sunday school and try to share the message of life with other people is getting smaller and smaller. Okay? And so there's a lot of things that we're deprive our young people of. They're not going to have assurance that God smiles on the United States of America. I think even right now he's not very happy with us. And it may look like we're having a little progress because we're getting all these reports that the economy is doing so well, and that is a secular measure of blessing. It can be very deceptive. And as we learned a few years ago, it can zap everybody. People were losing half of their savings. In fact, most people lost about average of half of their savings.
Happened overnight.
And now we're having inflation being reported erroneously, so people don't even know what inflation is doing to their savings. And I see these advertisements in the bank for CDs that pay 1.5%. 1.5%? Why would anybody put their money in a CD that pays 1.5%? Well, but that's all you can get.
Right.
The banks are loaded, and they don't need your money. And so we're going to have to find other ways to invest your money. And okay, so righteousness exalteth the nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. What's that word reproach mean? We don't use that word very often, do we? So Old Testament.
Bad report.
Bad report? Okay. Sin gives us a bad report. I like that. Okay. And the world out there, the only thing they know about America is what they see in television programs and movies and videos and advertisements.
All the evil.
Yeah, and so they think we're ripe for destruction. And there are nations that would like to do that. And fortunately, we think we've got North Korea turned around. They claim to have rockets that would reach the United States and could land on major cities in the United States. But he's been turned around, I think, because we prayed. And now I don't know if he's actually going to disarm or not, but he says he is. And that'll be some relief from that threat. Wow, that was really not as big as some of the others, like Iran and Russia. And so the world is very unstable right now. And the teenagers have taken some of this on themselves. They're forcing school boards to protect their schools, which they weren't doing before. And they're forcing young people, high school students, are pressuring legislatures to provide the money to protect the schools while the children are. And because the adults didn't do it. They just didn't have a conscience about it. And then when they had a thing down in Broward County, they had guards there, but they didn't do anything. They stood outside, leaning on the cars, talking about it, while the children were being shot to death. And they showed some of those pictures. They had some aerial photographs of the school while it was going on, and it showed these guys just hanging around outside there. They even had guns, and they were being paid. One of them was making $200,000 a year to be a guard at the school, and he wouldn't go in and endanger himself to save those children. And but that's, our people just don't have conscience anymore. They're losing their conscience, and it's upon the churches to get the message out that sin is a reproach to our nation, and we should oppose it. And it's every place, and we should get involved in the. We can learn a lesson from the women's movement. They've decided they're going to take over, and they're doing it. And so they say, well, we want some of you ladies to go down there and get involved in this board, and some of these other ladies go over get elected to such and such a organization, and they're placing them all around various organizations and opportunities, and they're infiltrating it, and they're getting their agenda is being voted in and implemented by doing that. So Christians need to do the same thing. We need to get involved with wherever we can get Christians in the legislature, on government jobs, judges, school board people, teachers. Wow, teachers. What an opportunity that is. They have those kids there for a year in those classes, and what an influence those teachers can be. I don't know. I can still remember some of my teachers, and we used to pray, say the pledge to the flag, sing Christmas carols in school, things like that. And it was, but my understanding, they don't do that anymore. And so I think you agree with me that we have lost our national conscience, and that people just don't recognize what's going on, and they're not doing anything about it. Well, I think it'll destroy us without firing any shots. People will come in here and take over. They've already done it in England, and that started 50, 60 years ago. And I don't know if it's been over there, but I spent some time going there when I was in service. We used to go in there every other week, and the people in there, they didn't know how to talk. They just talk, they swear, every other word. And they were, this was amazing because we didn't have that in our country at that point. Now we have it here. It's and they've taken the Lord's name in vain, and and they're hanging on by the fingernails. It's ripe for a dictator to go in there and take over. And well, I hope that you can participate in some kind of revival to combat this thing as much as we can. I don't know when the Lord's going to rapture us off the earth, but it could be soon. In the meantime, people are still becoming believers in Jesus Christ for everlasting life. And so we need to keep that open, share that message, bring people to church with you, tell them to see Dr. Ken at high noon, and try to make the best of the time we have left, whatever that is. And because there have been other nations that have been rich and powerful on the face of the earth. And we should study those, we should know those things. There was a great program on Fox News with, what's that guy's name? I made the tape with the DVD on it. Tucker Carlson. Yeah. He did a special on the high cost of college education. Are the children really getting what we're paying for? And then he has all this information. By the way, I copied that, and I have it on a DVD. If anybody wants to listen to it, and it's an amazing presentation. And there was a big survey done over a period of time, following the experience of children going through high school and college, and they just aren't learning. And the reason they found out was because they don't really do much studying or get much when they go to college. They spend more time shopping, eating, partying, and they counted up how much time did you spend this last week. Well, it turns out to be like an hour and a half. And the cost of that hour and a half for the parents, it would blow you away, because college education has become very expensive. And I don't think everybody want to come and enroll in our seminary because we don't charge anything. And we even provide the books for them. And it's all free. They get a degree, yeah. And
Life-changing.
and they aren't teaching history either. They're avoiding history, because history is very instructive. I mean, that's one of the major subjects to study what's gone on in the past. If you don't know those things, then you're going to repeat them.
Right.
And so they avoid that for some strange reason. It's okay. Well, let's share this message. Continue to share the message of life, which is, if you believe in Jesus for everlasting life, He gives it to you as a gift of God, absolutely free. You can't earn it, you can't buy it. It's a free gift. Jesus gives it to you when you believe in Him for everlasting life. It's that simple. It's a very simple message. Children can understand it. It's not complicated, and we got to separate it from all this other junk that people add to it.
Right.
And 90% of the churches in America are probably doing that, adding all these other things you have to do to have everlasting life. But the Bible is very clear. Only one thing is required, that you believe in Jesus for everlasting life, and then He gives it to you absolutely free. And that's the message. Easy to share. And we try to give it here. Every day when I preach on the internet, I give that same invitation over and over. And people are watching it and agreeing with it. We're making progress. It's slow, but we get 15, 20, 21, 22, almost every day. People that we know of, because some of them we don't even know who's watching it, but we're on 4 different platforms. See if I can recite these. Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, and Twitter. Yeah. And that covers a lot of people. And that goes all around the globe, I can tell you that. Especially Periscope. Wow, that was amazing. That's brand new. Their video thing anyway. And they're getting a lot of people tuned in there. And you can actually see on the map. You just click the little globe thing up there, and it'll show you where people are watching Periscope at the moment. And it's pretty impressive. And it's growing fast. It's the fastest growing of those types of programs, of all of them. It's really taking off. And I'm glad we're on there. I stumbled on it. But we got it. It's on that one right over there. And so pray for our internet ministry, because you're supporting it. Although it doesn't cost anything, it's free. None of this stuff costs any money except phone bill. And that's about $250 a month. And I haven't got the latest one because we've added a little more time on the, I don't know what that's going to cost. It's going to go up a little bit because of the data call, what do you call that, data or data?
Either one.
Okay, so we're going to be faithful, putting the message of life out there. From our church, but there's more to it than that. We've got a big problem with the national conscience, and we need to write letters to elected and appointed officials, and we need to let people know, hey, that's not right, and that's bringing our nation down. And there's and people on television, write the television station, let them know, send them an email. And some of them may get through to them. And they say, hey, somebody out there is listening to what we're saying, and what kind of language we're using, and how we're putting other people down. And if everybody does a little bit, it'll have an effect and prolong the period when people can still become believers in Jesus for everlasting life. That's what we're trying to do. And we know that we have a promise in the Bible that the apostasy will take over after a while. But in the meantime, we can do what we can to slow it down. How's that for a worldview? Okay. All right. Let's stand and we'll be dismissed in prayer. We were good today. And again, we're going to have the prayer partners up here. If anybody has a question or needs special prayer, just come up and stand in front of them, and they'll talk with you or pray for you. Lord, thank you that you've called us to be Christians and to be your servants. And thank you that you've pointed out to us that the conscience is on the decline of our nation. And help us to do what we can to prevent that and to turn it around and to be faithful in prayer and witnessing and sharing this message of life wherever we can. Prosper the internet broadcasting ministry. Thank you. And prosper our church and help us to revive our Sunday school. And we have a lot of absentees today. We know some of them are working and some of them are traveling. And bring them back soon. And bless our attendance and bless our people, especially those who are here today. Give them a real strong touch today. In Jesus' name, amen, we pray. God bless you all.
God bless you.
Father, hear my prayer. I need the perfect words that he will hear, and know they're straight from you. I don't know what to say. I only know it hurts to see my only friend slowly fade away.